Hello and good morning, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our third week of Compassion Camp. This is the official halfway mark, and so far I have had a great time recording these for all of you to watch, and I hope you've been enjoying them watching them. Did I mention how happy I am that I'm able to do this, and how happy it makes me to see that you guys are watching this? Because I care about you, each and every single one of you. And you know what? I care about me too. Just before I started recording this, I was brushing my teeth. And I was thinking, why do I brush my teeth? What happens if you brush your teeth and floss? And what happens if you don't? And then I thought, I take care of my teeth because I love my body. And I want to have healthy teeth and gums. What else do we do because we love ourselves? If you want to show yourself care and love, what do you eat? Do you feed your body healthy foods so that way you got all of your nutrients and you're big and strong? How do you exercise? Do you maybe play soccer, or do you just run around in the backyard, or do you play tennis? Like, what kind of things do you do to exercise? Because exercise is very good for our bodies. What kind of music do you listen to? I personally love country music, and every time I listen to it, it makes me really happy because I love that music. What kind of books do you read? I like the kind of sci-fi fantasy books like Harry Potter and Percy Jackson. I love those so much, and I love to read. So it makes me really happy when I get to read. In church, we talk a lot about loving others. But to love others, you have to love yourself first. When we care for our own needs, then that prepares us to be able to help care for other people's needs. As we look at the story today, we're going to hear about some of the most famous words of Jesus. Instead of giving people a long list of commands and rules to follow, Jesus gave only 2. But to best follow these famous 2 commandments, we must begin with knowing how wonderful, loved, and important we are. As we prepare to learn more about having compassion for ourselves, let's begin with our compassion prayer. So remember, one hand on our head and one hand on our heart. And we do this because compassion happens in our brains, but we feel it in our hearts. Gentle one, thank you for your spirit within us, who guides, encourages, and strengthens us. Help us to see ourselves through your eyes, with love, kindness, and deep joy. May we love our bodies, treasure our hearts, and celebrate our spirits. Amen. We are now going to read our Bible story, which is Mark chapter 12, verses 28 to 31. And this is called the Greatest Commandments. Jesus and the disciples spent a lot of time in Jerusalem. One day, he was at the temple, which is a place where people gathered to worship God, and he was teaching and telling stories, much like I'm doing here. A lot of people listened eagerly, but a lot had questions. The temple leaders and elders were unsure of him and asked, "Who gave you the power to do and say these things?" Some were jealous, and they wanted to trick him, so they asked, Should the people pay taxes?" Others were worried and asked him, "What happens in the resurrection and the afterlife?" Then, one temple leader was curious about Jesus. He saw that Jesus was wise and kind, and he asked him, which one of God's laws or commandments is the most important?" Jesus answered, "The first is what we all know. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart and all of your soul and with all of your mind and with all of your strength." Before the temple leader could ask more, Jesus went on. "The second is love your neighbor as yourselves. These two are the most important of all of God's laws." The leaders who questioned Jesus were concerned with so much. They're focused on things that aren't related to loving God, loving neighbors, or loving ourselves. They don't understand or trust Jesus, how he heals, teaches, loves, and how the people follow him. So they asked Jesus, "Where did you go to become a teacher?" Because they didn't understand where he got his power and knowledge. They asked him about his political views, hoping he would choose one side and make at least some people angry if he didn't choose their side. They asked him about complicated things like the afterlife because they thought he wouldn't be able to give a good answer. And then the people would become unsure of him too and stop following him. We're now going to go through and do a few questions. Well, I'm going to ask the questions, and then you are going to answer them with the people that you're with, whether it's mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whoever it is that you're with. I just want you to kind of discuss what your answers are when I ask the questions. So we're going to be coloring this while we do it, and it's for myself, which is what today is all about. So, let's start off by asking, what does it mean to love ourselves? What are the things that you do to show yourself that you love yourself? We discussed a little bit earlier about exercise, eating right, reading, all those kinds of things. Can you think of anything else maybe that you do to show that you love yourself? Maybe you have a favorite activity you like to do with mom or dad, or maybe a sibling that you like to do something with. Maybe you like to paint your nails, or you like to go for walks at the beach. Those kinds of things. So just think about all those kinds of different things that you do in your life to show yourself that you love yourself. Why is loving yourself important? For me, loving myself is important because I know that if I love myself, then it becomes much easier to love others and to kind of know how to help others love themselves. How does having love for ourselves help us to love others and to love God? For me, I know that I was made by God, by God's grace. And for me, God is perfect, correct? And God doesn't make mistakes. Which means that if he loves me, then I should be able to love me too. Because he made me. And I'm perfect in his eyes. So why should I not believe God? But I should. Just like all of you should. What are some ways that you can love yourself? Some things you may be doing right now, or maybe you've got some ideas about other ways that you can love yourself. Maybe it's trying out something new. Maybe you have always wanted to, I don't know, play a new game. Maybe try that. Maybe you've always wanted to talk to a new person at school but been too shy to. What would it be like in the crowd hearing these kinds of questions? What do you think? And what would it be like to hear Jesus remind the people of God's most important rules to live by? Do you think that some people may be ashamed that they haven't been following these rules? Do you think it makes some people proud because they have been following the rules? Do you think it surprises some people who maybe didn't know about these commandments or were new to learning about them? How do you imagine the disciples felt listening to religious leaders asking Jesus these questions? Do you think they were maybe frustrated that the church leaders were trying to kind of discredit Jesus? Do you think that they weren't worried because they knew that whatever it was, Jesus would handle it, just as he always does? Why do you imagine religious leaders were unsure of Jesus? Do you think maybe because they couldn't explain it, they were frightened of it? With uncertainty comes fear sometimes, like starting at a new school when you know nobody and you're uncertain of how your day is going to go. It can be quite nerve-wracking. So do you think that that's why they were unsure of Jesus? Imagine why this might have been surprising to hear. So you can continue this conversation with whoever it is that you're with, and you can do as little or as many questions as you like. It's just good to be able to talk about these different kinds of things. So now we're going to do a craft, and we are doing inspirational paper chains. So I want you to think about what makes you special, what makes you you. What are you good at? What do you love to do? What's your favorite activity or hobby? Having positive thoughts about yourself can make you feel good. Doing things we enjoy that bring us happiness. For our craft today, we're going to be making inspirational paper chains. So what I want you to do is get some construction paper and get all your favorite colors. You could do every color of the rainbow. You could just do purple. You could just do blue. It doesn't matter. Whichever colors that you want to add to this or to use is completely up to you. Now, depending on how big your sheets of paper are, I've got kind of a smaller piece, like a notebook paper, so I'm just going to fold mine in half. But however big your paper is, usually if you fold it in half, hot dog style, and then fold it in half again for a regular size of paper, then that's usually that's a good size for us to have. So in your case, your paper will probably be, one sheet will be 4 strips of paper, where in my case, it'll only be 2. And what I want us to do today is I want us to either draw or write, whichever you're most comfortable with, a positive word to describe yourself, or maybe an accomplishment that you've made, or an activity that brings you joy. Any kinds of those things, just something that makes you happy. And remember why you're so special and important and why you are so loved. Because you are all of these amazing things. You truly are. And it's really important that you remember that. Because remember that you need to love yourself first before we can help others. So, what I want you to do, you can do as many or as few as you like, and you can even give some to your parents or your siblings or a friend or something like that, and they can write something down about you that's positive. So, on my piece of paper, I've just got one strip here. I'm going to write, I love my smile. And then on my other one, I'm going to write, I am kind. So whatever positive things you can think about yourself, or if you have a sibling that you're doing this with and you want to write something positive for them, write it down on your strips of paper. And then afterward you're done, you're going to kind of fold it just so the two edges meet like this, and you're going to glue it together to make a circle. And then you're going to take your next piece of paper and you're going to slip it in, and you're going to do it again. And we're going to make these paper chains. So when we go back to school, or whenever it is that you feel is time for you to have something like this, when you need a bit of a boost of confidence, then you take apart one of your chains every day and you read something positive about yourself to remind you how amazing you are, how important you are, and how special you are. Now we're going to get up and do a bit of movement. So I've moved myself over just onto the floor, and what we're going to do, we're going to sit in our crisscross applesauce and lay your hands wherever you like, whether it's on your knees or in your lap or folded, however you like. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths to center ourselves. Perfect. Now we're going to stand up and take another deep breath. Relax your shoulders. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bend from the waist all the way down, and whether it's just touching your shins like this or touching the ground like this, we're just going to hold it with another deep breath. So from this forward fold, you're going to roll up your spine slowly and then raise your hands above you and then lower your hips like you're sitting in a chair like this and arms up like this. And we're going to take another deep breath. And then we're going to stand up again and give yourself a moment to regain your balance. From here, we're going to go into a plank. So hands down, flat, and try to make your body as flat as possible. And then from this, we're going to lower our hips and raise up into upward facing dog. And another deep breath. Now from here, we're gonna leave our hands where they are, and we're gonna bring our hips up and bring our feet closer and try to get your heels to touch the ground. Now you're just gonna drop down to your knees, so you're kind of like a table. And from here, you're gonna arch your back up and stretch your shoulders. And then you're gonna lower your back and arch it like this. And another deep breath. And we're gonna do this one more time. This one is called cat. And this one is called cow. Just feel how sturdy you are, balanced between the palms of your hands and your knees. After this, I want you to sit back like this. Now this one's pretty difficult sometimes. I even have trouble with this one. So just try as best as you can, just like I'm going to do. And you're slowly going to kind of sit back, kind of where your tailbone is. And you're going to bring your knees up, and you're going to make them straight so your body's a V, and then put your arms out like this. And then we're going to come down from that. And we're going to lay flat on our backs. And we're going to bring our feet up. And I want you to pull them into your chest. And another deep breath. Just feel your whole body stretching. Now we're going to roll out of that. Back into our crisscross applesauce. And we're going to take our last 3 deep breaths. And we will end with the words, Namaste. We are now going to bring our compassion into action. For this activity, it's not exactly an activity that I can ask you to do or anything like that, nothing specific anyways, but the point of this activity is caring for ourselves. And caring for ourselves involves listening to our hearts, paying attention to our needs, and loving our unique selves for exactly who we are. This is how we have compassion for ourselves. One tangible way to do this, meaning something that we can do physically, is pursuing things that make us joyful. I want you to either make something for yourself that will bring a smile to your face, warm your heart, and make you feel loved. Now, I don't mind what this activity is. The point is that it's unique to what makes you happy. And you need to learn the different things that make you happy and bring you joy. For me, I love going to the beach. So my mom, Reverend Carrie, and I try to go to the beach almost every afternoon. And we sit and we read with our feet in the sand. And sometimes we go into the water, and it's just so peaceful and joyful, and it's so nice to be able to share that with somebody else. If you love baking, you could ask your mom or dad to help you maybe bake a batch of your favorite cookies, or maybe some banana bread. If you like to do more kinds of crafts, you could make a glitter jar, or maybe you can draw or paint something to go up on your wall. You could write yourself a letter. You could do what I do and find a place outside that you can make kind of for yourself where you know that you enjoy being there. You could get a plant or maybe a couple of flowers and put them in your room just to bring some joy. You could make a tie-dye shirt The possibilities are absolutely endless, and it is completely dependent on what makes you happy. The point of this is for you to feel happy doing things that make you so unique. And whether or not you need help from a parent, or you can do it by yourself, or you want somebody else to do it with, is completely up to you. The amazing thing is that these are also wonderful things to share with others. Loving yourself can lead to loving and caring for others in easy ways. For example, you love to make glitter jars, for example. Maybe you could make a second and brighten somebody else's day by giving them one. Little things like this, but remember that we also need to find things that bring us joy specifically, because we can't take care of others if we can't take care and love ourselves. All right, everybody. It has come to the part in the video where we are going to be having our closing now. And I don't know about you, but I had an amazing time making the craft today, and I'm so excited to see how everybody did theirs, what colors they used, and maybe if you want to share a couple of the things that you've done, your mom or dad could send me in a photo of what your crafts look like so I can put a collage together at the end of this Vacation Bible School. So, last time we learned to be compassionate, meaning trusting God to help us be brave, to love others, and even ourselves. The week before that, we learned how compassion helps us see and welcome. Today, we learned that compassion means showing gentleness and kindness to ourselves in heart, soul, mind, and strength. We know God's commandment to love others. One way we understand how to love others is to pay attention to how we feel and what we need too. The temple leaders were worried about important things like fairness and authority. But Jesus wanted to show them that one way to love God and love neighbor is by taking care of our bodies, minds, and our souls. I want you to think, what are the things in your life that you need? What does every human being need? And how does knowing what you need help you love God and love others? This is a beautiful part of compassion. When we love and care for ourselves, we're being faithful to God. Loving God and loving others also means loving ourselves. In the Bible story today, we heard how the people wanted to know how to follow and love God. The temple leaders wanted to teach and help them to follow and love God and their neighbors. Sometimes we get bogged down by all of the rules and expectations. But being a good teacher, Jesus gave the people an easy way to remember all these rules. Loving God and loving neighbor gives us everything we need to be in community. But Jesus also gave us another little gift. Being kind and good to ourselves teaches us to love well. We learn how to love God and others by paying attention to our needs. Let us close in the same way that we opened today, placing one hand on our head and one hand on our heart, because compassion happens in our brains, but we feel it in our hearts. Gentle one, thank you for your spirit within us, who guides, encourages, and strengthens us. Help us see ourselves through your eyes with love, kindness, and deep joy. May we love our bodies, treasure our hearts, and celebrate our spirits. Amen. I cannot wait to see all of you next week for week 4 of Compassion Camp.